I'm no good at taking good advice, and I'm self-careless, so don't tell me twice that lately I've been so stuck in my head that I forget just about everything my therapist said. Maybe I'm self-helpless. Maybe I'm self-helpless. Maybe I'm self-helpless. Maybe we are all self-helpless.
Hey everyone, welcome to Self-Helpless. Today I'm chatting with Sharon Okun, who is part of our series Subscriber Stories, where our community has written in about a certain experience they'd like to share. And then I get to talk to several of you on the podcast. So today Sharon is telling us about her experience with many years of mysterious symptoms, trial and errors, trying to regain her health. She said that she started to exhibit symptoms of dementia, going to different doctors who didn't know what was going on with her, finally leading to a discovery that she had had Lyme disease, which led to having chronic Lyme, and likely had this since she was a kid. And then on top of it, finding out later down the road that the reason that she was impacted so strongly neurologically by Lyme was because of a pre-existing condition that she had that she also didn't discover, until she was an adult, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And then, all the various symptoms and illness that are attached to that. So she was in the dark about what was going on with her for a long time. So perhaps you or someone you love is experiencing some health issues and you haven't found an answer yet. It's scary, it's frustrating. So I'm hoping that by hearing Sharon's story, even if what you're experiencing is not necessarily Lyme or EDS, that something she says will unlock a new option or resource, or maybe you will consider something that you wouldn't have considered that might be able to help you, whether it's a new modality or looking into any family history that you may have access to, looking at your environment in a new way. And I just want to say, I receive emails and get to chat with our subscribers who are part of this series about different episodes that help them figure out what was going on with their health. Like there's certain episodes out there that people listen to, and then we're able to get the right help from a doctor or a holistic practitioner, or change something in their life or environment that help them feel better, which is just incredible. So it shows really how important these experiences are to share. And I just want to invite anyone who may have been through something that they wish they would have known earlier, and you're willing to share that with other people. Would love for you to submit for our next subscriber series, which submissions will be happening in spring of 2025. I'll definitely keep you all posted when it's open. I've just seen firsthand the impact that these types of episodes can make. And you don't have to be a public figure or have a big social media following or have written a book or anything like that to be considered as a guest on this podcast. So that is an open invitation. So, anyway, Sharon goes into her background and how her illness kind of unfolded. And then she gives, I'm not kidding when I say this, she probably gave about 100 practical tips and resources and exercises in this episode. She really jam packed this for you. It was incredible. Anything from books and alternative medicine to Western medicine, exercises you can do at home. I mean, it's just fantastic. So, definitely get out your notebook if you want to as well. Here is my chat with Sharon. Sharon, thank you so much for being here and for writing in and just being willing to open up and share your story about everything. We really appreciate it.
Oh, Delaney, it's my pleasure. I'm honored to be here as a guest. I'm a huge fan, and I've learned so much
Thank
from
you.
you and your guests. So this is a total honor for me.
Oh, thank you. That's really sweet. Means a ton. Um, so why don't we just start with what is your personal experience with Lyme disease, chronic Lyme, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome? How did you discover this all? Were they related? Anything that you are able to share around that?
So I lived in Westchester County, which is like ground zero, Westchester County, New York, ground zero for Lyme disease. We had woods behind our house. Our dog would bring in ticks, and they would land on me, land on my kids. But I didn't know much about it. There wasn't a lot of education out there. This was, like 25 years ago. And I had no idea. I tried to keep them off the grass, which is impossible for two boys who run around.
Mm.
Um, I didn't know that there was like something I could do for our dog to have him not bring the ticks in, that kind of thing. So I was clueless. I probably even got it as a kid. We used to camp. And also, when I was pregnant with my first son, I got a bullseye rash, but I never saw a tick. So they did put me on antibiotics, but it was only for 3 weeks. And I don't think it did the trick. And what they're finding more about chronic illness is it's like a switch. Sometimes that switch never gets turned on. So you can live with certain things for your whole life, and some things get switched on because of trauma, because of hormonal indifferences, because of all sorts of things, genetics. So, I mean, I can't guess when I got it, but yeah.
We actually just had Chris Carr on the podcast, who has been living with stage 4 cancer for 20 plus years and has been
Wow.
thriving with it. She has cancer still, but she was given this, prognosis that, I think maybe had a decade left to live, and she's far surpassed that. So it is really interesting that, like you said, you could be walking around with something, not know it, not be having symptoms, and then something happens that turns it on or something, or not, and then you just have it forever.
Right.
What kind of symptoms were you experiencing? Whether it was from Lyme, EDS, if it was confusing where it was coming from. What are some symptoms people can pay attention to if they're resonating, with your experience?
I was really having difficulty with brain fog, with memory. I started having all these neurologic symptoms, like feeling like the side of my body was seizing up. I had tremors. I really thought I was going through dementia. And I had known about Lyme disease because of where we lived, and I read about it. But most of the people that get it, it presents like swollen joints and so forth. And it literally landed just in my brain and my spinal cord. I mean, my joints were affected, but the scary thing was the neurologic stuff
Yeah.
because I had clarity of mind and then I didn't. I mean, there was a moment where I got in the car and I didn't know where I was. I was driving on a highway. Yeah, and it was scary, and there was nobody to turn to. There wasn't the internet the way it is now.
Yeah.
It was just a very, very scary time, and I wasn't getting a lot of answers, and I was going to a lot of doctors, and the doctors couldn't figure it out either. And I had gone back to school to become a licensed massage therapist. I started a practice. I was raising 2 kids, and I had to do all of that and not know what was wrong with me. And then I landed at a neurologist's office, and he did an MRI on me, and then he got me very scared. He said I had a condition with my brain, uh, which had nothing to do with the Lyme disease, and that I needed to see a neurosurgeon right away. These things
Oh
that
my gosh.
yeah, it was very scary, and I was going down the wrong rabbit hole, so to speak, until I eventually, found an integrated medicine doctor who's a mainstream medicine doctor. She studied, trained at Johns Hopkins, but she turned her practice into integrated medicine, and it was like early days for her, and she started getting all these Lyme patients, and I was one of the first, and she sat with me for an hour, and she's like, before she even did any blood work, she said, "You have Lyme disease." And I had been struggling. So this started in 2005. I had been struggling and struggling, and nobody was giving me the answer. And it was scary beyond belief. And just for her to say that, I was like she gave me a diagnosis. I was like, hallelujah, finally. Okay, we'll deal with the aftermath of the treatment. But now I know it's not in my head because I had been told that
Oh
several
my
times.
gosh.
Just a day in my life, I did everything I could to make it through the day. So when my kids got back home from school, I could raise them. But it literally took every ounce of my body to do that. And I came from, carrying my table up and down people's staircases. I had a full private practice. I worked at healing centers and the whole 9 yards. From that to like barely functioning, but I somewhere inside of me, I kind of like I'm gonna figure it out. I just don't know how. So that's it
Oh
was
my
scary.
gosh, I just can't believe that a tick bite can do all of that. It right? That it's just
Yes.
one tick bite can have that impact on somebody. It's unbelievable. So how does Ehlers-Danlos syndrome come into play here? Is it related to Lyme disease? Was that a pre-existing condition that you had?
So it turns out the reason why it hit me so severely neurologically is I had this other condition and I
Okay.
was born with it. And I realized my father had it. It's a genetic condition and it's
Okay.
kind of rare. They're realizing more people today are being diagnosed more and more. So it's connective tissue. It does affect your brain and your spinal cord, and it hits people differently. Some people have it very severe where they're in a wheelchair. It affects their blood vessels. Everything gets, all your tissues get very weak. The loose ligaments, which I realize I have too. You know, when I was a kid, I could do splits and no problem. And when I get a blood draw, my veins totally suck. I mean, I get poked a million times, you know, because my blood vessels are very weak. Now, that isn't the same for everybody, but that is for me. I've dealt with constipation my whole life and, just body aches and not understanding what that was. And the biggest one when I was dating somebody when I was in my early 20s, you're so delicate, you know. And actually, I realize now at 58 years old that being delicate is a superpower because I'm empathic. It helps me with my clients as a massage therapist and with my Qigong students and so forth. It helps me because I feel their energy. There's always a good and a bad to things, but just being very sensitive, getting fatigued very easily. There's another thing that's related to Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So it's a condition called mast cell activation syndrome that has to do with like having severe allergies or sensitivities to, smells, that kind of thing. Yeah, so the two are intertwined, and usually it hits women worse than it hits men. And so my father had it, and he had loose ligaments. His wrists were very loose. His ankles were very loose. You know, there's things that I look back and I said, I got it from my dad. And so what happened was before I was diagnosed with the Lyme and before I was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, I first was diagnosed with Chiari malformation. So a lot of people that have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome have a brain condition called Chiari malformation. So I was thinking that was going to be the thing, and it's going to, and so the only option I was given was surgery on my skull, and it was like immediate. And there was something in my gut that said, I don't think this is the right place. I don't think this is the right thing for me. So I left that surgeon and I kept on looking and looking. And in the interim, before finding the integrative medicine doctor, I found an amazing acupuncturist who would give me acupuncture enough to calm my brain a little bit. I could go home and I could rest. So between him and then I also had like craniosacral therapy, but I had it done with an osteopath. He did very gentle manipulation of my brain, my spinal cord, and the fluid around both. And those two things sort of carried me until I landed with the integrative medicine doctor. Now, the interesting thing about the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is I actually figured it out before she did. And having that is why I got so sick. So people can have Lyme disease and not have any symptoms. And so how it all came about, how I sort of put all the pieces together is I was walking with a colleague and a friend of mine who had a client who had Chiari malformation, the brain thing.
Yeah.
And she's like, she's also been diagnosed with this thing called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a connective tissue disorder, and all these, she has all these allergies, and she has all these other things going on, and GI stuff, and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. But when she was telling me that, I was like, I don't have a connective tissue. Like, I couldn't.
Yeah.
I was in such denial. Like, you mean I have something else? In a like, I could not download what she was saying. And then about 6 months later, I said, wait a minute, she might be onto something. And literally, Google is great. I started researching, and I'm like, oh my God, I have that. And then, like, literally a month or two later, my doctor said, guess what? You all also have this, and you have this. And
Oh my, so the Lyme disease came first and then you got that diagnosis even though you've had it?
correct.
Oh
Because
my
that's an
gosh.
So the things, and my kids have it too, but not to the degree that I have it. For some reason, I'm postmenopausal. Uh, Women, who've had trauma, and we'll get into that part.
Yeah.
It could affect them, more, or it more drastic way. Trauma plays a part in almost every illness. So yeah, and the thing that helped me with the trauma even more than the holistic doctor, was therapy.
Are there any other illnesses out there that some people that present like EDS or Lyme? Like, could somebody think they have something else, but one of these is actually what's going on? Or any other illnesses that have similar symptoms that you discovered?
So I literally just read an article yesterday about long COVID, and the symptoms of long COVID and chronic Lyme and EDS and mast, they're all the same. So it's
Jeez.
like your body can only take so much, and you react slowly because of the long COVID. Doctors are starting to believe the patients, which is crazy that they didn't believe them all along.
Right.
And they're starting to understand. So the thing that helps me a lot is I take antihistamine every day, because now I'm not diagnosing or having your listeners do that, but that was
Right.
one of the things that helps keep down the inflammatory process of the mast cells, which are kind of like histamine, the same kind of thing.
Mm.
And I've been allergic my whole life. So that's another thing. Severe allergies to things. On like EDS support groups on Facebook, you'll see people getting rashes. I get rashes. Like, if I get sick, my body from here to my groin area gets bright red. A-
Jeez.
And, I'm so used to it. Like, actually, I showed up once at a back to school night for my younger son, and the woman's like, I don't think you should be here. Like, I was gonna be contagious or
Oh
something.
my god.
The things I was
Yeah.
told, I really had to have a spine, like, to really stand. There's a qigong term, like, stand, like, in my alignment. So that's another thing I learned, to really set really healthy boundaries. I grew up with zero boundaries.
Mm.
My generation, I just learned that word a few years ago. Like, we didn't know. Um, yeah,
It makes sense why the symptoms that you mentioned could fly under the radar for so long, because maybe they're confused with other things, or people think, "Oh, this is just an isolated allergy, it's fine," or I see why that could go for so long where you have no idea that you have this going on. Is there a certain test that people can get to see if they have that, if they're having these symptoms?
yeah, there are geneticists that
Okay.
actually diagnose it. My integrated medicine doctor, she does a special Lyme test from California called IGeneX. So there is blood work, and more doctors are understanding Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So about 2 years ago, I went to an eye doctor, and he goes, "Oh, a lot of my patients have that because it affects your eyesight. It affects your brain, it affects your eyesight, And so mainstream doctors are starting to understand, first, that it's more prevalent, and second, that they're starting to understand how to treat it
Okay,
in
gotcha.
in conjunction with understanding Lyme more. But still, Lyme, another podcast, because I'm a podcast junkie, was talking about long COVID. Patients are coming forward and advocating. And so they did mention about chronic Lyme. And they're saying, well, because so many patients are getting long COVID and fighting, they're fighting the government, they're fighting, the National Institute of Health, they're fighting their doctors. That's why we now hear so much about long COVID and how they are listening to their patients. So at the end of the podcast, they were like, it's still not the same with chronic Lyme disease. For some reason, it almost presents the same.
Interesting.
It's like, I don't know, it's a controversy because like we have infectious disease doctors. At first they were saying, this is why it took me so long. Infectious disease doctors didn't believe chronic Lyme existed. So they were like, you can get acute Lyme, but you can't get chronic Lyme. That's why this integrative medicine diagnosis is like almost all of our patients have chronic Lyme disease.
Oh my gosh. Are there any, whether it's from family, coworkers, are there any instances where you feel misunderstood because of your chronic health issues?
People are like, why can't you do that? Like, I can't drink alcohol. Just can't. I
Yeah.
get very sick.
Yeah.
Why can't you go to the concert? Why can't you do that? Like the people are just they're trying to be nice, but they still don't understand when I'm trying
Sure.
to so that the boundaries, setting healthy boundaries. I mean, even with people that are in my circle of friends, saying like I have a friend and she was the kind of friend and we're very close. She would just say, can you talk now? And so I finally said to her, you have to give me at least 24 hours notice because of all my stuff. She knows all about my stuff.
Right.
And then so now she does that. She says, okay, can you talk tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock? So, like setting really healthy boundaries and figuring out how to do that. That was huge.
I'm sure you have a pretty extensive toolkit for what has helped you over the years. What are some of your favorite tips, resources, modalities, anything that you want to share that really has made an impact on your health?
I got the diagnosis. I started with a trauma-based therapist who was trained in somatic experiencing, which is a body-based, and she's a psychologist, but she's also trained in the somatic experiencing, and it just gelled with me because I'm a massage therapist, and it all fell into place. But it was a crazy ride for a long time. And it took me a long time to even get to this point where I'm having a clear conversation with you.
Wow.
And I don't think, because I had it for so long, the Lyme, I don't think I'm ever going to be 100%. So, what I do to manage it is I learned Qigong, which is like Tai Chi, but much more gentle for me. I had known Tai Chi because I learned it in massage school in 1996. But Qigong is like mindful, meditative, gentle movement and self massage. So that was key. And there was only one person in my area that taught it, and I started with her. So that helped. And then I started taking more classes online, and I eventually got certified. But doing that between the somatic experiencing, the Qigong, because Qigong actually is based on traditional Chinese medicine, which I learned in massage school. So it made a lot of sense to me, the meridians, the acupuncture points, and all that other stuff. And, I just kept at it. I just dug in my heels and said, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure it. But there's a book on MS and chronic illness, and about this woman who was trying to explain to her friend what MS was like. She gathered all the spoons in the diner and she started to say, okay, I use one spoon to make breakfast. I use another spoon to take a shower. And by the end, she's trying to say by the end of the day, she has no more spoons. So that sort of happens to me. I get to a certain point in the day, I have to shut down my phone. I have to decompress because I know now my Nervous system, that's another thing that got really kind of jacked up. My nervous system is very sensitive, and I think it will be for the rest of my life. I have these things, somebody called them mind body hacks. Uh, that wasn't my term, somebody gave that term to me. And, like the breath work, and
Yeah.
as you see in my hand, I have an anchor. I'm always holding that. Or we moved to the beach. I have a piece of sea glass. I'm always like holding something to sort of calm my body. I still see a somatic experiencing therapist.
Mm.
I see her twice a week because, I had a lot of trauma, but she's helped. She's helped. The Lyme treatment helped.
So between Lyme disease and EDS, are these curable, or is or there's no cure for either one? Medication? Is it just you have to manage it the rest of your life once you're diagnosed?
They have medications depending on your symptoms. So, first and foremost, I was on antibiotics and they were playing with all these different antibiotics. Some patients with Lyme disease get IV antibiotics if they're really serious. My doctor, because I was so sensitive, delicate, um, she didn't want IV on me or in me or whatever. So she was trying with different antibiotics. I then started to do a lot of research on herbs. So once I was diagnosed, I went back to like my acupuncturist, who was really knowledgeable about Lyme disease. First, he said, "I apologize that I didn't tell you sooner because you present so differently than a lot of my other Lyme patients." And then he put me in touch with this man named Stephen Buhner, who's written a ton of books on herbs. So I played around with herbs on my own. I read every single book of his, and he's on. You can go on Amazon, just Google Stephen Buhner. He talks about herbs that you can take, and they're helpful. When I was struggling so drastically with this, I would spend a lot of time like going inside my body. Now, because I'm a massage therapist and I've been one since 1998, I understand the anatomy of the body, but I go into my body, I move things around. I actually do similar things to what the osteopath did. I do similar things to what the acupuncturist did. Like I do it in my mind's eye. And there is a new compounded drug. Now I'm not advocating for this drug,
Sure,
but I'm
sure.
going to tell you about it. It's called low dose naltrexone. There aren't a lot of studies because it's compounded. So it's based on a drug called naltrexone. So naltrexone was discovered in the 50s, or even before that, I don't remember, to help with drug addicts getting off drugs.
Mm.
And at low doses in the 50s, they were realizing it helps with autoimmune. And so a doctor in New York City was starting to use it. It's never really taken off in a huge way because it's not being tested the way pharmaceutical drugs are being tested. But
Mm.
that's changing. There are some doctors out there that are doing studies with low dose naltrexone. And for me, it helped a lot.
Wow.
So yeah, it really has helped clear my mind, so I got to the point where I was able to just recently write a chapter in a book. I mean, my brain was so bad.
Mm.
I couldn't concentrate. I could not do that. I've always liked to write. And the fact that I was able to get back to that and do that. Now I did it like this. So I would write one draft, then I'd go lay down. And then I'd go over the draft again, and then I go lay down. So, I'm always sort of managing myself. That's another thing, like a lot of self care. I'm fortunate that I could do that at this stage in my life. I do a lot of breath work so that I tap into my breathing. If I'm getting agitated, like I said before, I hold on to a stress ball is really good to do. And, have your guests look up Qigong. It's very gentle, or even Tai Chi. So there are different forms of Tai Chi that are very gentle. And there's some that are more like martial arts. I just read them in my massage magazine that people are understanding EDS and chiari malformation if you can handle a massage. get a massage, maybe
Mm.
gentle.
Yeah.
You can go in and say, I have this or I have these symptoms. Can you be really gentle on, with your massage?
So between, all these holistic practices that you've implemented, any medication that you've needed, did one thing really stand out to where you noticed a huge uptick in how you feel? Yeah, what's helped the most, or do you attribute it to kind of a mix of everything?
Well, for me, it was trauma therapy because I
Mm.
didn't know what I didn't know. Like, I didn't know that these traumas landed in my body and it was body based. So I had traumas from, childhood. I had traumas from the medical world. So it was just that adding all of that together was like a dynamite in my body.
Mm.
And, that really helped me. And then the thing that Qigong brings to me is being playful, being present in my body. But like I'm going to show you. So my
Yeah.
therapist, this is a Nerf sword.
Ah.
So, like when somebody is really pissing me off, like I envision like standing I actually sometimes stand on a chair and like go around the whole room, like leave me the F alone. And it's
Yeah.
Nerf, you can get and then like have teddy bears. So there's a part in Qigong where you do this thing called spontaneous Qigong. And you kind of, when I teach it and when I do it, I dance and I move around like a little kid because the more playful you are, the calmer your brain gets. I don't know. It just really has been extremely helpful for me. I walk a lot. So we moved right near the beach. So I'm on the beach. Like if I'm having a very stressful day, 20 times a day, I'm going to be there, and I just, having first compassion for myself so that I can have compassion for everybody else. There is a move. Her name is Daisy Lee. She taught a move called Phoenix Rises from the Ashes. So
Mm.
that's me.
Mm.
And I remember that on a daily basis, not necessarily doing the move, but remembering, you know, that I did this. That I'm badass and I'm a warrior and just grateful that I can make it through another day, be present in my body.
It's so fascinating that the trauma therapy was really something that unlocked so much for you or helped you, feel immensely better. Is there anything that you're comfortable sharing with us as far as breakthroughs, just for anybody that might not understand the connection between physical illness and how that can manifest based on trauma? Anything you're willing to share?
When I was a kid, I was sexually abused, and
Mm.
not by a family member, by a neighbor, which led me to like get into pretty toxic relationships. And so I mean, luckily I met my husband, and he's a real good guy. He's one of the best.
Yay.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and so we work on that, um, and it, stuff from my childhood. I had a brother, he passed away, unfortunately, who was severely autistic, and that was hard on me. I ended up raising him with my parents, and so we work on that, how to let go of that, like how to not let it stay in my brain because then my brain was so inflamed, and then getting the courage to get away from that neighbor to a different part of the country by the water. For me, it's been so helpful. And because of that, I've met so many new people. I'm like a little puppy dog because I keep meeting such great people. And it wasn't like that. I guess maybe I wasn't attracting the right kind of people in my life. But I got very clear on, what I wanted to do and how I wanted to show up for myself. Is it perfect? No. I mean, life. There's a thing with Daisy that she says the name of the program was Wuji Hunden. So Wuji is that she ball um, that maybe people know about, but the Hunden is the chaos. So how do you work with the chaos of your life? Everybody has chaos. So to understand that when I said the meditation part, I don't mean like going on a mountaintop. and in silent retreat. I mean, like doing meditation in a way that is you can be present in whatever is your experience throughout the day and throughout your life. You know, if you have a chaotic life, it's really hard to sit down and meditate
Yeah,
and calm your
absolutely.
brain.
Sharon, thank you so much for sharing that. That was very generous of you to do. For somebody listening right now who doesn't even know where to start with being able to let go, like you said, kind of let go from some of those traumas, is there anything that your therapist said to you or helped you do that you felt a bit of a release from those things? And if so, is there anything that you can share around that?
Prior to going to her, I actually had another therapist that started me into guided imagery. So, working through the trauma very respectfully, you know, making space in all your organs and all parts of your body to hold whatever you're feeling. So, and then when I got the somatic experiencing therapist, we do that a lot, like giving space in my body to hold whatever I'm feeling, um, feeling where my body is in space and time. So sometimes even though I do telemedicine at this point, I lay down. She's like, where do you feel grounded in your body? You know, it's about my body. And then there is a lot of books out there. One of them is The Body Holds the Score.
Oh,
Got the guy's
yeah.
name. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Body keeps the
So
score. Yeah.
yeah, the body keeps the score. Yeah. So I learned about how to set boundaries,
Mhm.
you know, how to, and this is like with Qigong, you do a lot of like putting your hands up in the air or to the side, that's part of the Phoenix Rising. Yeah, and the acupuncture points. I'm just going to show you one.
Yeah.
So in the center of the palm is a powerful acupuncture point that's related to the heart. So when we are making chi balls or doing energy healing, and by the way, traditional Chinese medicine is the original Reiki. It's
Mm.
thousands of years ago, and Reiki was based on that. And creating space, around our body, pushing away that what no longer serves us, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Feeling where our feet are in space and time, softly bending the knees, where working on the body, everything's soft and getting rooted like a tree. So in Kabbalah, there's like the tree of life. Well, in Qigong and traditional Chinese medicine, it's being rooted like a tree. So the winds, the storms can come, they can bend you, but they do not break you.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Start off maybe with an acupuncturist or a very calm and gentle massage therapist or, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Were there times where you just felt like this just feels like a pile on? How much more can somebody take, right? With the traumas that you experience, the loss, the grief, and then these rare conditions and all of that. What has helped you in some of the lowest points when nobody is around? Is there anything that you've told yourself that has helped you get through those times? Anything like that that you want to share?
So there were some dark moments when I wasn't being diagnosed properly and I was like feeling literally like I was holding on by my fingernails. In my mind's eye, that's what it felt like. I was literally hanging from a mountain by my fingernails. Like I almost didn't want to be around. But for me, I have two boys, now adults, and this knowing inside of my body that somehow, if you trust your body, you will find the answer. It might take a long time, and you might have to go through a lot of different people to get the answers. So, ironically, yesterday, a new neighbor of ours, I started opening up. That's another thing. Open up. Start to speak your truth. I opened up about my Lyme disease because she invited me to do something on a boat, and I said I can't do anything on a boat because I get dizzy because I have Lyme disease. She's like, "Oh my God, my husband too," and oh my God, it was the worst. I couldn't get him diagnosed. So just start to talk and speak your truth and let go of some of the shame. I was told never to speak my truth. I didn't even know what that meant. I see my children having that strength to say, nah, I don't think so. I was never taught that. It's like baby steps.
Absolutely. With all the modalities that you're interested in, energy work and all that, do you enjoy a little bit of woo woo and synchronicities and all that good stuff? I would only assume.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and I absolutely enjoy those. Were there any moments that just kind of took your breath away with the synchronicity or magic of it all?
When I made a decision to move, this is only a year ago. Like it really everything started to happen. I a publisher reached out to me. I
Mm,
wrote a chapter in a book called "I'm So Glad You Left Me," and it's about leaving versions of yourself behind. She just came. There she was. She
wow.
contacted me one day. I was like, really? And then somebody hired me to teach 30 women qigong on the beach at
Oh,
sunset,
so cool.
and I was like this would never have happened years ago. Like it just seems like uh, everything seems to be lining up. Things with my kids and things with my, everything. It's just I had faith. There was something that was going to shift. I didn't know how. And like I said, there were some scary times where I felt like I was hanging on by my fingers or my fingernails, but I don't know. I just kept on digging in. And like I was literally with a shovel, you know,
Mhm, mhm.
digging a path to something, a light at the end of the tunnel. And another thing is like, I try not to go on the news because there's so much crap,
Yeah,
and I'm like,
me too.
and immediately, if I start to get, I say jacked up, my nervous system, I'm like, yeah. So the woo is there, definitely there.
Yeah. I mean, so it sounds like making that move or deciding to make that move was really pivotal for you. So, what would you say to somebody who's listening right now that wants to make some kind of move, whether it's moving to the water, moving out of state, moving careers, whatever it is, but they're really nervous to do it? How did you work your way up to saying, that's it, I'm going?
So it did start with a career shift many years ago. So
Mm.
in 1996, 97, I went back to school. I was in marketing, and I was like, this is so toxic. Where I was working and how I was doing well, but I was in sales and marketing. I was like, I am woo, and I need to get into something that's woo, and I didn't know what that meant. I always was like that,
Yeah.
and so the only thing that, in 1996, there wasn't a lot. So I went to massage school and I was like, wow, this speaks to me, And I felt a little like, am I a fraud here? Because like my classmates were much younger than me and they were all dancers. It was in New York City, and they were all very calm with their bodies and everything. And it took a long time for me to like start to honor and respect my body. So I did the shift on that. And then the move here to Connecticut, it took close to 25, 26 years. I mean, I could have done it sooner. I wish I had. Um, but moving into a new place or a new career, sometimes you got to take messy action and just go for it, even if you don't have all your ducks in a row. Know that you matter. Even if everybody around you says you don't matter, you matter. Here on my desk, I have a bunch of post-its, like write post-its all over and get pretty ones, like pink ones.
Love it.
And yeah, right. I have those racing thoughts. My psychologist said the automatic negative thinking, the ants in your brain.
Oh my gosh, that is such a good one. I'm gonna remember that.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and we as adults are wired to have those like scanning for danger thoughts. Start to journal, and this is what I suggest. Journaling doesn't have to be like, oh my God, I got to write a whole novel. No, take one positive word and I write it down, like warrior. And then from each letter, I make it an acronym. W, for wise, and A, for
Mm,
abundant. I just do that, and it's a writing prompt for me.
so fun and creative.
Yeah, so and then also learning to advocate for myself and say that no, like to a doctor, not putting the doctor on a pedestal. I'm not interested in that. Thank you very much. I could be shaking by when I'm doing it.
Yes. I mean, it can be hard to have those firm boundaries with somebody like a doctor or somebody that, you view as some kind of authority, right? So that is such great advice. It reminds me of the quote, like, setting boundaries or boundaries, how I can love you and me at the same time. Sharon, thank you so much. You have given us so many hot tips, tools, resources. I love how jam packed this episode has been. Where can people find you, your work, all that good stuff?
Selfhealinglab.com. And then from there, you can get to my Facebook page, which is also called Self Healing Lab. And then I'm on Facebook as Sharon Okun.
Amazing. All right, everyone, go check out the resources that Sharon mentioned if you'd like to connect with her further and join her community and learn more about what she's doing. And I just want to send some love to anyone who is experiencing a chronic health issue. I hope you find some answers and healing, and I hope this helped you feel less alone today. All right, talk to y'all soon. Thank you for tuning in to Self-Helpless. You can find our brand new merch, Patreon community, and other fun goodies at selfhelplesspodcast.com. We'd be thrilled if you left an Apple Podcast review, shared this episode with a friend, or post about it on Instagram and tag us at Self-Helpless Podcast so we could repost you and say hi. As an independently produced show, we sincerely appreciate your support. Thanks, everybody.